Hello everyone, this is CloudSir. Well, I'm here to tell you a little bit about my experience with the new MacBook Pro from the point of view of a programmer. As you can see here, here's my MacBook Pro M1, 13 inches, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and I have it here connected to, I think that it was a 27 inches monitor through HDMI. I have a dongle here with a lot of connections going through the Mac. So I'm gonna explain like how has it been my experience working with this new Mac, transitioning from working from Windows to this Mac, and overall how comfortable I've been feeling like using all of the software that I use in Windows now here in the Mac M1. So let's get to it. Okay, so a few things to begin with. Okay, so first of all, I think that I would be considered like a full stack developer. I code in Node.js, Angular, PHP, JavaScript, CSS, HTML. I also use Ionic, I use Java and Swift. So let's say that I'm in all of the web and mobile application development. So that's what I'm gonna in this case refer to when I talk about my experience here. If you code in some other languages, well, maybe this video might be for you, but also might not. So at least I'm gonna give my experience with the languages that I use in my line of work. Okay, so the very first thing that I'm gonna tell you if you are developing is that you're gonna have to get yourself like a big screen, like a 27 inches or more. Well, it's my suggestion, because the screen in this Mac is 13 inches, so it gets like really kind of compressed to work in there. So at least that you're gonna have to get like yourself a big screen and that use as your main screen, and then you can use the Mac screen for some small applications, for checking or using the browser. But yeah, that's my first suggestion. I also have like a mechanic keyboard and a really good mouse like attached to this dongle that I got for the Mac. So other things to keep in mind is that you can only connect one monitor at a time. You can overcome this issue with I think that it was called like a USB link or something like that, but that's buying like additional stuff. So if you get yourself like a big monitor, that's gonna be like completely fine. Okay, then another issue that you might experience is like using wireless mouse, keyboard, Bluetooth, 2.4 gigahertz, because I've noticed that at least with this Mac, this doesn't have in my Windows computer. I've seen like a little bit of lag and stuttering with the mouse when I try to switch screens, and I've heard like many people complaining in the forums that this also happens to them. So at least me, I'm using like wire stuff, because I was having some issues with my Logitech mouse and with some other things that I connected to the Mac. Okay, so that's about like my experience with working with a mouse, keyboard, screens. Okay, now talking about the software itself, I have used Visual Studio for doing most of my coding parts. I don't see like any issue with Visual Studio. It works really smooth. It's also working in the x86 platform. There's still not an ARM version, but hopefully it's gonna come soon. But other than that, it's working completely smooth. Talking about FTP clients, well, I tried using CyberDog, but CyberDog crashed on me like a few times. Then I tried to use FileZilla, like an open source alternative, but FileZilla doesn't have like that option that automatically like uploads the file once you save it, because they say that they don't play with your data or something like that. So, but the thing is that I really don't like that. I don't like to have to go back to the program and click save. So I decided to use Transmit. I ended up buying it. I think that that's like the best FTP manager that you can get in Mac. It's a shame that they don't have like a WinSP version here in Mac, but oh well. This Transmit works really good, and as soon as you save, it uploads. So well, Visual Studio and Transmit like solves most of my issues like working for the web. Here I have my SQL Workbench. It's also in 8x86 version. With this I connect to my databases. Well, some people can use PHP MyAdmin if they want it, but at least I prefer like to use like the MySQL Workbench. In all the days that I've been using it, it only crashed once, and it was when I left the Mac unattended for like many hours. I don't know what happened there, but it has only been like that crash. Other than that, has worked completely smoothly and responsive. Okay, now talking a little bit about like the mobile apps. For example, here I have Android Studio. That is what some people like ask me, how does Android Studio works in the M1 Macs? And to be honest, I see it that it works like the same as the Android Studio that you would use in a regular Mac or in a Windows computer. I don't see like too much of a difference there. It's like kind of the same, so at least in that way there's no problem. But there's a small issue that might be like a deal breaker for some people, at least not for me because I use my device, is the Android virtual devices. We have like two ways of, in this case, creating virtual devices: x86 images and ARM64 images. But the first message that you read here is that your CPUs do not support VTX. That is like an Intel virtualization technology. So when I try to run the x86 image, the first thing that it says could not start AVD. And then when I try to run the ARM64, at the beginning it kind of looks like it's gonna launch it, but then I get this error that says simulator process for AVD was killed. So I don't think that for now you're gonna be able to use virtual machines if you're watching this video right now. I'm sure that in the next upcoming weeks, Google's gonna come out with something to fix this. But you can always use your phone like I do. To be honest, I've never used like virtual devices just for checking like different screens and how the app works. But other than that, if I want to test like the app is working and doesn't have any bugs, I would use my phone. There's no issue with that. I use my Samsung phone and everything works smooth. So yeah, other than that, well, as you may know, it's kind of tricky like to install Java in these M1 Macs. But the good thing is that Android Studio already comes with a Java pack, so you don't have to worry about the JDK or the SDK installation of Java. Android Studio already comes with it. Well, and yeah, that's it with Android Studio. Other than that, the compiling experience is like fast, doesn't take too much time. Yeah, just like any high-end computer using Android Studio. Well, I don't really have to explain too much about Xcode, because Xcode is an Apple it's an Apple software, so of course everything's gonna be like super fast, super smooth. There's the ARM version of it, so don't worry about Xcode. If you're using Xcode or making applications for the Macs, that's perfect for you. Other than that, connecting to my SQL Server database, I use Azure Data Studio. Everything works fine there. I must say that all the software made by Microsoft, like even if it's emulated in the Macs, M1 Macs, is working perfect. There's like no much crashes. There's no crashes. I mean, I've never experienced a crash so far in these weeks. Yeah, mostly that. Like my overall experience in this case with this M1 Mac feels like any other like really good PC, laptop. If you're a new developer and you want to start like using Mac as your main platform, well, maybe this is like a really good opportunity for you to jump into the wagon of the M1 chips, since you will be already like in the new technology. I think that you're gonna do like just fine with that. But if you already have like, for example, the 2019 Mac or the Intel Mac, I think that you will not really feel in this case like a change, because, for example, it's not like this Mac feels like, oh my god, this is so fast. There's no other like fastest machine like that. No, not at all. It feels like any high-end Mac. So if you have like an i7 version or an i9 version, probably you're gonna be just fine. In fact, I would suggest you not to change. At least wait for 6 months to a year until like all the other companies release their ARM version of the software. So I'm sure that you're gonna be just fine using your Intel Mac until 6 months to 1 year. And the only thing that I would like advise people that, for example, well, I cannot talk for other like music developers, video developers, or anything like that. But be careful if you're using like interfaces, like hardware connected to the Mac, because I'm sure that that's not gonna work. I'm having some problems with some, for example, devices that I use, because there isn't like uh, like an ARM driver, sorry. So in that case, you will be like better waiting just a little more time until they release like the drivers for those things, because you're gonna have like too much issues if you're using like these M1 Macs. So yeah, that's something to take in consideration. But other than that, if you're like a web developer, if you're a mobile application developer, I think that you're gonna do just fine in this Mac. I don't know if you can see here my hardware monitor. Like, I have all the apps open at the same time. I'm using 16 gigabytes of RAM. 8.76 gigabyte has been used in real time, and the rest is being used for caching files, and the swap memory kick in. This is something important, because if you're using the 8 gigabyte model, one of the things that makes in this case the Mac feel smooth even with 8 gigabytes is that it uses swap memory. And because in this case you have really powerful SSDs and they're like really close to the processors and everything is like really well interconnected, then the swap memory is gonna feel like it was real RAM. So you won't feel like any slowness, you won't feel like application lags, because you have the swap memory. But in the moment that you feel your hard drive memory, well, I mean your SSD memory, then you're gonna start like experiencing issues, at least with the 8 gigabyte models. So that's something to take up in consideration if you're going for the 8 gigabyte Mac, to give like your SSD like a few space for the swap memory. So in that case, you will always feel like smooth. But yeah, other than that, my experience has not been bad. Feels like any other high-end Mac, any high-end computer. So at least for the things that I do, I think that it's like a really good option if this is your first Mac. Well, you will want to be careful if you do like a lot of virtual machine simulation, because that thing is not yet fully implemented and you might come out with issues. So you're gonna want to wait like 6 months at least to a year if you wanna jump in and create virtual machines. That's the only thing to keep up in mind, because yeah, it might be like a little tricky for you if you are into virtualization. So keep that in mind. But anyways, this has been my small review as a programmer, like working with these new M1 Macs. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments. Feel free to join my Discord server. Also subscribe, leave a like, and see you next time.